So what we've been working on in class is working with classification and taxonomy. Through evolution, we've looked at how we get this huge diversity of life. Taxonomy is then how do we classify it? How do we organize it? How do we name all these living species? So I'm going to talk you through a lab just to practice some of these skills. So what you want to do is go into Canvas, click on Modules to access the lab. And then once you're in Modules, go down to the Taxonomy module. And one link you'll see says Alien Taxonomy Lab. You click on that, it'll let you access the documents you needed. And so if you click on the document link, it'll open up some intro, kind of the lab description. So I'll kind of talk through some of this and go through some examples that you can use to help you work through it. So classification or taxonomic keys are used by scientists and naturalists to identify living organisms in the wild and in the lab. Keys are developed by using similarities and differences in the characteristics, so it could be physical, that's like looks, characteristics you can see, could be behavioral or how they act, or we can look at things like DNA and proteins that would be more of the biochemical level. These variations are used to develop dichotomous keys. The complexity of the dichotomous key is determined by the number of specimens to be identified. So in this lab, you'll be given 8 essentially creatures and 2 keys to work through to identify your creatures. So you have this diagram that is an example. So all the creatures are going to have the same basic body plan. They're all going to have a head. If they have a bump in the middle of the head, like this one does, that's known as a phren. The middle section is known as the body, and then the caudus is like the tail. So it could have 1 tail, it could have 2, so you might see caudus or caudi is just the plural. These little extensions that come off of the caudus are known as cilia. And so what you want to do is I attached a PDF, and that PDF has a couple things attached to it. One of them are the actual creatures themselves. So they're numbered, you have 8 of them. So these are the 8 creatures you want to identify. And then you also have some keys. There's 2 different versions of keys. You can see at the top this one says version B, and then if we go down we also have a version A. And so there's different formats for keys. So this lab, the goal is to expose you to those and how to use them. And so I'll talk through how to use the keys in a minute. But what you want to do is there are tables. And so depending on what key you're using, whether letters or numbers, you want to indicate the path you take to identify your species. So I'll talk through an example to hopefully make that a little bit more clear. And so if we look at, if we want to focus on this one, number 5, and we're using version B. Usually this one people tend to have an easier time with. And so when you look at it, it's broken down by number. Each number has 2 options, and then it will tell you to go to a next step. And so if we practice, we'll use number 5 as an example. The first option says has a friend head, has a split head. If we go back to our diagram, remember friend is the bump on top of the head. And so if we look at number 5 here, we can see there's no bump on top of the head, so it does not have a friend head. So in that case, that's known as a split head. So it would be like split head, compared to this one that has the bump, that's a friend head. So split head says go to number 19. So on this key, if we go down to number 19, has a single caudus, has more than 1 caudus. Caudus, remember, is the tail. Go back to that diagram if you need a refresher. Single or double, we can see there's only 1. So double caudus would tell us to go to the next step. So we want to be recording these in that table. And so if we go down, we have, we're working with specimen number 5, so then we would write, 1, 19, what steps did you take to find the scientific name. And so if we're down to 19, we said it has a single caudus, it says go to step 20. If we do that, has body pattern, has no body pattern, you can see there's nothing in the body. So like this is an example of a body pattern. This one is lacking it. So if we go to no body pattern, it leads us to this scientific name. If it doesn't lead you to another number, that's the scientific name. And so then we've identified our creature. That's the goal. And so we would add 20 and then record the scientific name over here. So then that would go in this blank here. And you want to work your way through the different creatures. The other key is a little bit more confusing, so I'll talk through that a little bit to help you out. And so with this one, the version A, which is the letters. It's the same basic style, but instead of using numbers, we're using letters. And so if we work with number 5, key thing is if our single letter does not work, then we jump down to the double letter down here. So if we use number 5 as an example, A says specimen has a friend head. We know that's not true. We said that in the other key that it does not. So then we would jump down to double A. Specimen has a split head. That is true. So then we go on to B. Specimen has a single caudus. We said, yeah, that's true, one tail. So we go down to C. Is body pattern absent? Yes, there's no body pattern. And that leads us to our scientific name here, which should match. But say, for example, B wasn't true, that it had more than one caudus, then we would jump down here to double B. So if the single letter isn't true, go to the double. Otherwise, go to the next, A to B to C, all the way to the scientific names. So depending on which key you find easier, a lot of people find this one to be a little bit easier, more straightforward. You can always use this one to key them out first, and then use this key almost as a check system. You should find the same scientific name for each creature. Number 1 should only have one scientific name that should match no matter what key you're using. So you want to work through, identify big things, track your path on this one. So this would be, you know, A, B, C. What letters did we use to identify our creature? And then the scientific name, including capitalize the genus, lowercase the species there. When you're all finished, you want to submit this so I can take a look. Let me know if you have questions.